Okay, we're live.
Okay, we will call this personnel policies and procedures meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Hopkins,
Here.
Jackson,
Here.
Burrell,
Here.
Chavez, Johnson.
Present.
Okay, it looks like we have all 5 members here today. Welcome, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Mr. Chavez, would you do the invocation?
Sure.
Mr. Burrell, would you do the pledge, please?
Okay.
All right, everyone bow their heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day. The sun's shining, things are going great. I thank you so much. I know you love us and you want the best for us. And I thank you for this day that you brought forth. I thank you that we're here and we're able and we're healthy and we're able to do the business of the parish. I pray that we do things that in your sight that you see fit and help us make decisions as you would like us to do. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, do we have the flag? Or are we just gonna stand, please? Veterans and active military members can salute, and all others can put their hands over their heart as we recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Go ahead and let the public know that if you're planning to speak during public comments, you need to go ahead and calling in and get in the queue. This time we move to agenda additions.
I haven't received any.
I have none. Any from the committee? Okay, no agenda additions. We'll move to public comments. I'm sorry. We
First,
got certificate of teleconference.
we need a motion to approve consideration under items under Louisiana
So moved.
Revised. Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve teleconference certificate.
Do you want to do it
Roll
by
call,
acclamation or
roll call, please.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yeah.
Burrell,
Yes.
Chavez,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Okay,
All
that
right.
carries 5 out of 5.
Okay. Next order of business.
Public comments for the citizens who'd like to call in. That number is 318-226-6596, and they are limited to 3 minutes. I haven't received any electronic comments.
Okay. And you have no phone in.
Not yet.
They've had a couple minutes earlier. That's why I said that early. Instead of us having dead time, they can start calling in and we move on. All right, this time move to the next order of business.
Okay, under new business, the first item is discuss resolution number 26 of 2021, a resolution amending the rules and bylaws of the Caddo Parish Commission regarding the time limits of speakers under communiques and committee reports.
Okay, what I thought we'd do first is let the author explain what his intent was on this resolution, and then we can move there from that.
Okay. The intent basically was to limit discussion per commissioner to 5 minutes per item in the communiques. Some of our communiques basically have gotten off track, that we wasn't really doing communiques. Some of it was basically venting. And so that's why I mentioned in the other meeting the other day what a communique was, so that everybody would stay focused and try to keep it down to a minimum time frame. We limit the public to 3 minutes in their discussion, their talk to us. In the other parts of our minute, in our other parts of our agenda, the time is limited to 5 minutes already. And so the communique basically was the part in which needed to be also limited so that we could kind of move on and move with the agenda.
All right. This
Point of
time I'd like to, go ahead.
Oh,
Go
well,
ahead, sir.
point of information or maybe clarification, since I'm a little new at this and not familiar with all your protocol or what you've done in the past. Uh, have we restricted this under any other administration?
We have our bylaws. We've had since 1984, so I believe, and there have been restrictions on public comments. There's also been restrictions in our bylaws as far as other items, but we have not addressed the under communiques in the past. We've had kind of gentleman's agreement, but that's fluctuated.
Well, I guess, I mean, it really doesn't matter to me. I know sometimes we get a little long, but what I understand is that in terms of public comment, we have so many people that come in that can make comments, and which could eat up a lot of time. I recognize that, so I can understand the limit there. And what was the other one that we limit? Debate?
Like under our public hearings, we have a 15-minute per for and 15 minutes against, and it can be broken down into 5 speakers at 3 minutes apiece or 1 person at 15 minutes.
Okay.
And then commissioners are limited to 5 minutes per question.
Right.
So it's covered during the rest of the meeting except for communiques. And since that time, we've added another time of communicate the mid reports. That one at the beginning and the one at the end. You can't hear me,
Okay.
Stephen?
Chopping up.
Oh, okay.
Well, I understand this particular section. I don't know a whole lot about it on the communicate. It's my understanding that was given to the the commissioners as an opportunity to express different things, maybe even a report on what's going on in their district or what have you, because this is one of the few times that we will have that opportunity to access the public because they will be tuned in. So I recognize from your standpoint, Mr. President, that sometimes these things do get long, and it should not be something that would be necessarily for vetting per se. But then you turn around and you limit it, and I give you a case in point, Commissioner Epperson. He feels very strongly about things that goes on in his district, and he shares with the public a lot of these things, and it does get a little long. But at the same time, he feels like he's doing what he needs to do for his constituents, and I wouldn't like to restrict anything. And even if it were me, you know, I can see that. But I think given the fact that we can work civilly together, and if the chairman is whoever the chairperson is, they can always intervene and then and make a comment. Let's see if we can shorten it, blah blah blah, hopefully without getting offended. I just think that we wind up really putting a restriction in an area that has been given to the commissioner in order for him to get whatever information he needs out. That's the reason I thought it was that flexible, but it may not be. Like I said, I'm new on the board, on the commission, but from what I've heard from others, this has been an area where you have the opportunity to express things to the public or particular issues or what have you. Maybe I'm incorrect on that. All due respect.
Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Burrell. All right, Mr.
Yes,
Burrell.
that's it.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I was just gonna ask, is this also going to apply to the administration report? Will it apply to the president's report? And will it apply to visitors as well?
I'll let the president, I would say,
No,
in my opinion, go ahead, Mr. President.
no, it doesn't apply to all of those. Visitors, I think we gave them, typically they got about, it's no time frame, but typically we try to tell visitors to keep it somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. At least that's what it used to be. Administrative report based upon all of the stuff that he has to give back on a daily deal. His could go over a 5-minute talk, so you can't limit it to 5 minutes because you got the monument, you got the emergency rental assistance program, you got master plan, you got 4 or 5 other different things that commissioner said that they want to have in his administrative report. So he has to give an update of all of those. When you're talking about, who else you said?
Visitors, administration, and president's report.
President report will follow the same. I've not known the president that talked 20, 30 minutes on the president report, because they can come back and do another piece of it and communicate if they wanted to.
Well, I guess my concern is as the duly elected representative, I understand that the administrator has a lot, but if I'm elected and I want, or just anybody, not just me, if there's a neighborhood update that that constituents may need to hear, and that's the forum to do that. There may be some issues on crime. There may be some updates on COVID. There may be some events going on to notify the public. There may be some hot topics going on nationally, or some votes that were taken that somebody may want to use that time to explain. I guess I kind of see it. One of the things that I know we did was we tried to limit the communiques at the top. And so I guess what I'm trying to figure out is it a enforcement thing? Because if we're not going to limit the visitors, I heard you say we have an understanding that the visitors, I think maybe we need to try to come to an understanding that, hey, we're going to try to keep our comments at 10 minutes. And if people can't keep it within that particular time frame, then maybe come with legislation that would officially limit it. But I'm just trying to make sure that the elected—
Well, tried that. We had the 7 minutes as a gentleman's agreement, but we've been shooting way past 7 minutes.
So that's what I'm saying is that, you know, I know we're on Zoom. I know because they used to have the clock in the chamber, and so do we need to have a running clock on Zoom to let folks know that you're approaching your 7-minute mark, that kind of thing? I just don't want us to get to the point to where we are, and I'm not saying this is what you're doing, but I just think that if the elected representatives who are duly elected to be down there are going to be capped at 5 minutes, I just kind of think that everybody ought to be able to fit what they got to do within that 5 minutes, because our work is just as equally important. Our tasks are just as equally daunting. Of course, we may not get into the subject matter expertise. I may need or somebody may need a property standards update. Somebody may need an animal service update. Somebody may need a juvenile update. And then you got your neighborhood focuses. And I'm not saying this will happen, but these are scenarios. And I don't want a commissioner to feel like they got to be rushed and you just never know. I just think that we might need to just enforce the sort of mutual agreement that's in place And then there was another part of the agenda that says agenda items only at the top. That was supposed to speed up. So the more general announcements, neighborhood announcements, those things could kind of be on the back end of the agenda where, so we could get us through the business as opposed to putting them up front. Because I get it. If you give 12 people 7 minutes or 10 minutes, that's what, 120 minutes, that's an hour. And we hadn't even gotten to the business. That doesn't include public comments, that doesn't include administrative report, that doesn't include visitors. So you could easily burn up 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours, and not even have gotten to the business. So that's just my commentary on it. I'm happy to hear what others would like to, and I'm happy to you know, I think this is good conversation for everybody to have.
Mr. Chavez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thanks, Chairman. Actually, Commissioner Jackson touched on something I was going to ask. And I get it. I think it's more of an enforcement issue, and this may be some work for the parliamentarian going forward. I like that idea of the timer. We did have that in the chambers, so maybe we need to figure out via the Zoom. I'm sure that software has some type of clock that we can throw up on the screen. But yes, like I said, Commissioner Jackson stated it. My question was going to be, we moved around the agenda to have things pertinent to the agenda as the first communique and created a secondary area for informative communiques via districts, or if you just wanted to talk about whatever you wanted to talk about for, I think we said 7 or 15 minutes at the bottom. So maybe we should just start out with enforcing that. And I know parliamentarian Burrell is new on the commission, so he wasn't here to know the history of why we created the duplicate communiques. But maybe just some sit down knowledge between the president and the vice president to say, hey, you may not be the favorite guy, but you may be the guy this year, and you wanted the job, so you got it. To unfortunately have to interrupt the commissioner and say, hey, this is not germane to one of the agenda items, and that may be what we have to do moving forward. So I know why this is on here. We are running very long. It's taken us an hour, almost an hour and a half to get to the business of the parish. And by the time we actually get to the meat, a lot of the people that came are fatigued out and they've already left our meeting. Thank God we're doing it via Zoom for now, but we're not going to do this forever. And we got a lot of people that are leaving work that care about an agenda item that they want to vote on, or they want to speak their piece either for or against. And frankly, they may not want an update from the worldview for the first 2 hours before they even get to the reason that they're down there at the chamber. So I'd like to see more of the informative go to the second communique, and we're going to have some enforcement with that. Just my opinion, Chairman. Thank you for bringing this forward. I'm done.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Because I am new and I'm trying to basically understand what we are doing here. Isn't there 2 points on the agenda that you have communiques, one at the beginning and supposedly one at the end, or just one? Maybe
There's two. There's on our work session and regular session, there's 2 bites at the apple, one early and then one later on in the meeting. The first one is items that are on the agenda. The second one has a little more leeway to talk about some of our, what it sounds like sometimes, community bulletin board information, but it may be relevant to your district and maybe not somebody else's, but that's what we have on that second bite.
Okay, I understand the first bite, and I even better understand the second bite because, as I said before, I've heard a number of commissioners use this as an opportunity to make certain announcements, give update on information. I guess I'm more patient than most and stuff like this, because if the commissioner feels that it's important, then I try to respect whoever is giving it, it may become a bit boring and tedious, and I can understand the public not to be interested in it, but that is the moment that, I mean, that is the place that you gave a duly elected public officer to do these things. And I guess my question is too, given the fact that I haven't been on here but a year, and y'all may have talked about this before, in the second communique, did I hear that there was a 7-minute limit on each commissioner in that area?
There's a gentleman's agreement on both those communiques. It's not in our
Okay.
bylaws. It's a gentleman's agreement.
Okay. Well, as I said before, the president who is conducting the meeting, we should have respect for them if they are courteous and would like to have a peaceful decorum. There are ways in which you can tell the commissioner or say it before, say we would like to enforce our 7-minute rule. That would just make them more conscious of it. But to just go and unless we want to put it in the bylaws, I don't see any need to go and put it in the bylaws for that to be done. Whenever we should have respect for the president or vice president, whoever's managing the meeting, because that's basically what they do. They manage your meetings. They're not dictators. They manage your meeting. Most presidents, vice presidents I know in a meeting situation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. This time I'd like to move to approve resolution number 26 and send back to the floor for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. I'll speak on it. I think we have gotten a little long in the wind at times. I think 5 minutes gives us a good time for items related to the agenda, and then later on for those other items. Now, when we talk about dealing with things as far as our staff, I don't really believe that's time counted against us. I mean, if I ask one of the department heads to come from whatever department and answer some questions, that shouldn't be held against us at that time. And then we've got our agenda. We've got all these items we're having to approve on our agenda. We get to speak a whole lot in our meetings. And I think this would just cut it down and get us to our meat and potatoes. And that's why I think we ought to send it back to the full board. It takes 2/3 of a vote to approve this, and see what happens.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman.
Hold on, Mr. Burrell. I've got Mr. Johnson first. Mr. Johnson.
Okay.
Yes. Reason I wanted to put it in the bylaws is I do remember my colleague, Commissioner Jackson, said if it ain't written, it don't exist. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we put it in the bylaws so that we'll all know and we all have that same knowledge, because at the end of the term, then it becomes another gentleman's agreement. And if that gentleman wasn't there, a gentlelady wasn't there before it got started, then they might not totally agree with it. But if it's already there, then it basically has passed a 2/3 vote of the body. When you look at the communication and committee reports, it's not really limiting you. It's the 5 minutes is there, but you also have 2 rounds to speak each time. So that 5 minutes now turns into 10 minutes. And then you can always ask for 5-minute extension, which now gets you up to 15 minutes. So you look at 15 minutes at the beginning, 15 minutes at the end, that's 30 minutes. And I know that's a lot of time to speak on multiple topics. So I just ask that everyone will support it. And we will start enforcing the first communiques and committee reports to being agenda driven. And Michelle, if you and Jeff would y'all go ahead and put that as a note for the first communiques and committee reports, that is agenda item only. And then at the end, then that's the one that they can freelance on.
All right.
All right, Mr. Burrell.
Mr. Chairman, let me be clear on this amendment, because I wasn't able to print it out. I'm just going from what I have on the agenda. I don't have the capability of expanding it right now. This amendment basically says that you have 5 minutes to communicate, or what does it say?
Yes, sir. It will add the 5 minutes to communiques. Where it does not state it in our bylaws at this moment, this is an amendment to add the 5 minutes under communiques.
But right now we have a gentleman's agreement for 7 minutes, but it's not being enforced. Is what I'm understanding. Is that correct?
We have a gentleman's agreement for 7 minutes. That's correct.
Okay, well, again, I don't think there's something we shouldn't put in the bylaws. The other thing, could this not be moved? I understood too, as we were discussing it, that because we have important items that's past this point, that we may not wind up getting to because of the length. I wouldn't say we won't get to it. We'll eventually get to it. Could we not move this further down the agenda, or is that etched in stone somewhere where we can get through the important agenda information? Because if we got to communicate up front and you're not addressing the issues, then the last communique is basically should be mostly for the public. Whatever information you're putting out there could that be pushed further down the agenda so that we can get past the important information, since we've already given a communique up early on?
Well, I think we have our communiques early on that are related to our agenda.
Okay.
And then at the end, after we've done all our other business, we have that second communique at the end.
Yeah, but we haven't done all of our business at that point, is what I'm understanding, that we wind up getting to this communique before we have other important issues that it's past that. In other words, that's not the last thing that we do.
Well, to move it, that would be another resolution to change that. At this time, we're just talking about the 5 minute limit.
I understand. I'm just trying to get a clarification to make this better, rather than etching things into legislation, which may change with the next president or vice president, or could. But anyway, that's my that was my clarification, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? At this time, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Jackson has his hand up.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'd like to make an amendment to keep this at 7 minutes with an option for a 3 minute extension with approval by the body.
Second.
All right. Mr. Jackson, would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, sure. I think, based on what I hear, is that there is a gentleman's agreement, and I'm all for. That me? Is that me? Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I'm all for formalizing things. I'm glad to see folks have come around to that process. And so 7 minutes, I think, keeps us where we are now. And the option, I don't think one individual member should dictate an extension. I think the body should be able to dictate a simple majority. I think what we have to get to the point of understanding is, when you are a part of an elected body, no, we shouldn't just talk all day. And I think this is, and I definitely can't speak for Commissioner Epperson, who has done this longer than I have, who's seen various iterations of this as well. And I think, Todd, you can speak to this, and definitely Commissioner Burrell can speak to it, being in the legislature. When you are an elected member of a body, it's a privilege. And so communiques is a privilege. It's not something really and truly. Again, you shouldn't have privilege to speak 20, 30, 40 minutes on something, but there should be some privilege to it. And communiques is usually a privileged motion or a privileged item. I think down in the legislature, Commissioner Burrell, they can just get up and ask the Senate and the Speaker for a personal privilege, and they can be recognized on personal privilege. They can want to recognize the baseball team who came into town from the state championship. So I think this is a balanced compromise. I never come to the table without an alternative. I never try to just say no, emphatically no to something. I try to find a balance in something that I think is workable. And I think, you know, a total of 10 minutes on communicate, I still would like to see this applied to all areas of the agenda, whether it's visitors or the other reports that we get as well. So again, I just want us to keep in mind that we're duly elected, and that should come with some level of, and when I say privilege, I don't mean above anybody. I mean privilege as in you are a part of this body. So I want to make sure I get folks to understand what privilege means. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else this time? Okay, now we'll roll call vote on the amendment.
Hopkins? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Burrell?
Yes.
Chavez?
Yes.
Johnson?
No.
Okay, that carries 4 in support and 1 in opposition.
So we'll have it rewritten, sent back to work session, I guess the next time with this option. And again, it takes 2/3 of the vote to change something like this. Next, we move to discuss resolution number 27. The resolution amending the rules and bylaws of the Caddo Parish Commission regarding the resubmission of agenda items by commissioners. Mr. Lazarus could not be with us today. I think he was tied up. I think his intent was, we've seen more often now items that have failed be resubmitted, and I think that's why he brought this up. So anybody, I'll give any time. Mr. Burrell.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I didn't quite understand why this was being done at this particular time at first, but I've slowly started to understand one of the reasons for this was more political than anything else. I have never been in a body where you restrict a duly elected officer from bringing up any submittal that he has that they feel important. All you can do is vote it up or vote it down. That's the process, and you restrict them from not bringing it up because of politics in many cases. And I'm gonna put it this way, where I saw this coming from, which I didn't realize at first, was because of partisan politics. We're in a highly charged political environment. Nobody want to talk about it, but I always like to point out the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and I don't have a problem in doing that. And I think that was the issue, the reason why this particular amendment was actually put forth. And what you're doing when you do that, you're still putting restrictions back on a duly elected officer to put forth whatever resolution or amendment that they want to put on the agenda. That's their prerogative, and it is something that may be supported by people in their district. And here we are, we putting another muzzle on democracy. And I say democracy being, you have a right to vote it down each time it comes up. The reason why I'm saying this too, being in the state legislature, it has taken me 8 to 12 years to get something passed, but they don't restrict me from bringing it back because I brought it the last year because of the democratic process. They either vote it up or vote it down, or either some other procedure. But they don't muzzle me saying that I can't bring an issue up when that issue may be important as time goes by, or it may be less political as time goes by. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying, Mr. Chairman and members.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes. Similar to the communiques. I'm sorry. Similar to the communiques, I think what we have to be careful of is when we start changing the fundamental structure of our body, of our institution. And so I'm always a little hesitant on when we start restricting. I'm for adding things that are meaningful and make sense, but when we start doing things that are restrictive, that takes away, again, I get it. Nobody wants to be stuck in a meeting for 2 to 3 hours. But as Commissioner Everson said at the last meeting, he articulated it very well. We're elected to serve, and we elected to serve to get the job done. We're not there to help somebody meet their newspaper deadline. We're not there to help the news channel get their breaking story for Live at 5. Our job is to ask questions. You ask questions ahead of time, but a lot of people don't like to ask questions ahead of time. They wait until we get to the meetings to ask questions. So I just think restricting how many times you can put something on the agenda is a very dangerous precedent that we can set as a body, and it's a dangerous practice that we can set as a body. It took me 4 or 5 votes just to get the Edward Jones Housing Trust Fund set up, passed. It took several things, and I think that the trust fund is going to be beneficial to us and the community. And so I just don't think that we should restrict how many times a duly elected member of the body, again, privilege. It'd be a privilege to be able to put your items on the agenda, have them vetted, and, in a respectful manner, vote your conscience, vote it up or down. You have every right to do that. So I understand the idea that it may make meetings move quicker, but I mean, if I change 2 or 3 words in the same resolution, we could be right back at it again. So I don't know that this will achieve that level of efficiency. And I think it restricts participation in our democracy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Chavez.
Thanks, Chairman. I know Commissioner Lazarus is not here, and I understand the intent of his legislation. And I agree with what was previously said by the other commissioners. So I'm thinking maybe since this is our committee, we're here doing the work. We don't want to restrict anybody's access, but on that same token, we don't want to fill the agenda with, if your legislation gets voted down, we don't want this to be common practice where commissioners just start putting the same item on over and over and over again, and then thus filling our agenda up. And we all know that life happens. One commissioner may be stuck in the hospital, one may be at a son's boot camp graduation and may not make it. And just because of that instance, that a legislation may fly and go through because the majority vote of the favorable commissioners may be there at that time. But I would rather us do the work of politics, of seeing if your district wants this, not just merely winning or losing by whoever's there at the time of the meeting. So I think whereas maybe not 6 months, Commissioner Lazarus wanted it to where we couldn't put it back on in 6 months. we're the committee. Maybe we're here to think together, put our heads together, say maybe if it fails, the next time the commissioner wants to bring the same item up, maybe the sitting president may move it to a respective committee. That way the committee can discuss it and then it'll come back to the full body. Or maybe instead of 6 months that we allocate, 1 month, just like Commissioner Burrell said. There's nothing wrong with trying to bring things back, but to bring it back every single agenda, that may be a little bit much. But if you're passionate about it, and I understand passion, and you really want to get your point heard, then maybe we put some protocols in place to allow for that to still happen. However, not congest the agenda with the same duplications, because obviously if one commissioner has the idea, it's going to replicate. We're going to end up with the same agenda items over and over again from various commissioners, and it's going to be a lot. So I want us to maybe put our heads together to see what are some alternatives, and maybe we can lean on Commissioner Burrell or yourself, Chairman, that have been in politics a long time and have seen other bodies address this issue, because this is a new one to myself. Thank you for the time, Chairman.
Thanks, sir. I move to approve and send back to the full body.
My hand is up, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. It's first go. I'm still under first go.
Okay.
So that's my motion. Okay, motion fails.
I was gonna say, I'll second it just to open up debate on it.
Okay. All right. I have a motion to approve and send back to the body for full vote.
Oh, I second it just to open up debate, so we can open up debate on it.
Mr. Jackson. I think I've already said what I need to say as far as what Mr. Lazarus was wanting to do, and so at this time, Mr. Burrell.
I got two questions. We said Commissioner Chavez said that he know what Commissioner Lazarus' intent is. I know Commissioner Lazarus doesn't normally have a whole lot to say in a lot of issues. But first of all, I like to know what his intent is, because I don't want to assume his intent. I can only go by what I have witnessed as to that would have brought this about the resubmission. It was two issues. It was the capital situation, insurrection, and the submittal for the minimum wage. And those are two political hot button issues. And I can understand the feelings around them, that you may not want to hear them again, or maybe even certain part of the public may not want to hear them again. But we are in a democratic process. We have a democratic process by which we voted up or down, and we as fellow commissioners have to be tolerant of other commissioners who are there, as Commissioner Chavez said, that may be passionate about certain things, where you don't disrespect them. Now, I can understand looking at another government body to see whether or not that a procedure like this is cutting down on their democratic process. I know of none, but I think that would be something that we need to look at, because if not, we're going to be out. We always last. Maybe this is something that you want to be first on, but at the same time, when you start messing with the democratic process, I think that takes a precedence over anything else that's out there, and it's something that you should consider, that you are taking away part of the democratic process in presenting your issues, regardless of whether it's once, twice, or more. We voted up or voted down. That's the system. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Jackson?
Yes, is Attorney Frazier or Bernstein on?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so Attorney Frazier, thank you. As I read this particular piece of legislation, let's say Commissioner Teleferro offers up a resolution or an ordinance. One, that would it restrict all legislation, resolutions, ordinance, anything from coming back? That's my first question. But two, let's say Commissioner Teleferro brings it, it fails. This legislation to me doesn't prevent Commissioner Gates Watts from bringing the same legislation back, does it? It doesn't sound like it does that to me. So I'm just trying to, can y'all, I imagine y'all drafted this. Can y'all fill me in on that, please?
Basically, if the agenda, if the resolution has the same subject matter or would result in the same outcome, it would not matter who brought it back. If it does not move forward or is not voted on favorably, it would not be able to be placed on the agenda again for 6 months under this particular resolution.
So regardless of who the author is, it couldn't come back to the agenda. So Commissioner Gates Watts, who's duly elected to represent another constituency in town, she would not be able to bring that legislation back in her own capacity.
No, not if it had the same outcome or sought the same outcome as the one that was voted unfavorably.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. That's it for me, Mr. Chairman.
Point of
Mr. Burrell?
clarification. I want to clarify, since we have the attorney on, does she know any other body that does that?
Commissioner, I haven't done any research to find that out. I could not definitively tell you because it would take delving down into somebody's bylaws, each individual body's bylaws, because it's not something covered by Robert's Rules of Order. And so I couldn't say.
Okay, well, well, I think that's important because again, we are stepping on the democratic process by which we get things passed or not passed, and we're just kind of stepping out there based upon a particular time in history that we didn't want to deal with certain issues. I think that sets a real bad precedence. So thank you very much.
Got another
Mr. Jackson?
I can support that.
I've got another question as well, Todd. Does the ordinance have to be, what if the ordinance is, I guess if the ordinance is remanded to committee, is not considered defeated?
That is
No, because
correct.
no.
Well,
It doesn't go forward.
right, but it's not been doesn't go forward, but it has not been turned down either until it comes back out of committee, I believe, and then we put it back on the agenda.
that would be correct.
And Attorney Frazier, I saw you in the chat say, as you read it, it's only resolutions. It only applies to resolution.
It only applies to resolution.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
At this time, roll call vote.
Hopkins,
No.
Jackson,
No.
Burrell,
No,
Chavez, Johnson. Commissioner Johnson,
What was it? I got disconnected. I couldn't hear.
it's recommend approval of resolution number 27 to the full body.
No.
Okay, that motion failed. 0 in support and 5 in opposition.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman or Attorney, I guess. I'm sorry, Michelle.
Oh, you're fine.
Point of clarification. So under the existing rules now, if Mr. Lazarus wanted to, he could bring this ordinance back to the body now, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I hope somebody will get him to see that that's why that is in place, or that's why that restriction is not in place, because now he still has a shot at the apple Because if we had denied it, or would that have applied to committees if it was defeated in committee? Would that have applied? How would that have worked out? I'm sorry, I know we voted, but I guess I would like to know some understanding as we go forward.
It was sent to committee, so it does not come out of committee, so it will not be back on the House floor. This resolution, anyway. It can come back in another format later. But
Okay.
this resolution here failed in committee. It won't go back to the floor.
But he could introduce a new
He could.
resolution. It had a different number and had the same wording.
Right.
He could at this time. Yes, he could.
But
Right.
it's, say for instance, if this had passed, I think this was the question, if this had passed or had not passed in committee, it would not come back to the floor. So it's still under the resolution if that was the case. Am I making sense?
Right. If this resolution was in place, right. If his resolution was in place, he would not be able to bring it back to the floor at all,
Correct.
regardless of whether he changed the number or not. That's what I was asking. I think we're on the same page. So that's what I was getting at. If we had this in place, he would not be able to bring. I hope folks will talk to Commissioner Lazarus to get him to see that, you at least still have another shot at the apple, another bite at the apple here. Whereas if this was in place, it'd be a lost cause altogether.
And that support our democratic process.
Right, I agree.
All right, that'll move us to our next order of business, Michelle.
Discuss holding in-person Caddo Parish Commission meetings, work sessions, regular sessions, and committee meetings.
I think this is Mr. Jackson brought this point up, and I'll open the floor for you, sir.
Yeah, no, I just wanted us to have a discussion, open it up for a discussion on how do we feel about, first of all, let me preface it by saying this. I know a lot of people like to jump out with headlines to try to seem like they got the inside scoop, or to try to make it seem like that they're influencing what we're doing. Let me be very clear. I reached out to Commissioner Hopkins as chairman. Was that Wednesday, maybe?
Yes, sir.
To just kind of ask off the cuff what was his ideas about it. So I think somebody saw it on the agenda and all of a sudden it became their headline. But what I do want to just pose to the body and just open it up for conversation. We don't have to take action, but the idea that was presented the idea that was presented was if at least I want to say, I think I had suggested maybe 95% of the body, as well as that would include the body, the staff, the people who have to be at our meetings in person were vaccinated, then we would resume in-person meeting, whether it's 95, 96%, but an overwhelming majority, because we know that CDC has come out. CDC has come out with new guidance on in-person activities inside for individuals who have been vaccinated. And so again, I just wanted to open this up for conversation to see where the body is on it. Not trying to force anybody to do anything, but my thing is if the goal is to get back to in-person meetings, let's follow the CDC guidance and say, let's let everybody go ahead and get vaccinated, or the majority of everybody gets vaccinated, staff gets vaccinated, the people who just have to be at our in-person meetings must be vaccinated, and then go forward from there. So I'm just opening it up for discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Chavez? There you go.
I think that was a carryover. Sorry about that.
Okay. Mr. Burrell?
Mr. Chairman, I'm kind of glad we brought this forward, or should I say Commissioner Jackson, I guess, brought this forward, because, I have mixed feelings about it, about meeting back in person. Since I've gone through COVID, I should heck wouldn't like to go through it again. And I know, talking to you, Mr. Chairman, I know of all people that would be concerned, because we were concerned about you, and I appreciate my other colleagues being concerned about me when I caught COVID and didn't know it. Could have been spreading to others. I do watch and keep very close, you know, views on the CDC. And yes, I'm trying to follow their guidelines, and I watch it every day to see how things are changing. They've talked about 6 feet now. They may be talking about 3 feet. So this virus, because of how it has started to mutate and replicate, it's a constant changing deal. And given the fact that the CDC has come out with guidelines saying that even if you are vaccinated, they would be more inclined to recommend that you associate with people within your own family group more than other people that you don't know. And in our situation, in an open meeting like that, we are dealing with people that come in that basically won't take a shot. They may not have ever had it, but they won't even take the vaccination. And I don't know how we're going to be able to, curb the transmission, because this thing has become so political now. We may be putting ourselves back in jeopardy. I'm not afraid of it as much as I used to be, because I've already had it and I've already taken my first shot. I'm kind of following the CDC guidelines now. But what I'm understanding too, that 50%, there are 50% of certain people or certain groups that has vowed not to take it. Not because it is not good for them to take it, it's because they made it political. And I don't want to get caught up in their political crap and put my life in jeopardy, or my family's life in jeopardy. So that's the only, those are the mixed feelings that has come about with me. I'm not afraid of me, but I am afraid of you. If I can be so blunt, that you're not going to do the right thing, at least what is told to you that would be best for us as a community, not for you as an individual, but as a community. And that's where my problem lies, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Frazier?
Yes, I just wanted to point out that from an employment standpoint, that we can't require vaccinations of employees as a required condition of employment. And there's a decision on whether or not they have taken the vaccination is not something that we can require to be disclosed pursuant to HIPAA. So that is something to consider. I think the consideration is probably going to have to be whether an individual feels that they are sufficiently protected by whatever measures they've taken individually, as opposed to measures that other people have taken, because we'll have trouble accessing that information.
Thank you, Ms. Frazier. That's one of the things, I haven't taken really any polls or anything, but just looking at commissioners and staff who I think have had the shot. I mean, I think we're well over 80%. We may be dangling around 90%. So I guess the question is it 80? Do we need to do 80%? Do we want to do 90%? But whatever we do, there's no use trying to do something we can't attain. So I guess that's the number. We need to figure out what a good number is, and then I'm not sure how we can require. I know we can't require anybody to take a shot. There are going to be people that are not going to take the shot for whatever reason. That's their personal decision. I have had mine. I know that. But so I guess we kind of go from there. Mr. Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, what I was going to say was, yes, absolutely. It would be volunteer. You would have to volunteer to disclose that you have received your shot. So that would be something that you would disclose with HR, and they would make sure that, it's kept in accordance with confidentiality and HIPAA agreements and things of that nature. And so, I was thinking 96% because at least to my understanding that at least 2 of the 3 vaccines that are out there are 90% effective, 96% effective. So that's why I was saying 96% or 95, 96%. So that's kind of how I arrived at that number. But again, I agree and I understand that it's all, and again, just because you consent to have I know the media watches this stuff and folks who pretend to be media, it's because you consent to disclose that you have received your shot. It doesn't mean that you're giving folks access to yours. Somebody eating or something or closing something. Y'all don't hear that?
I think so.
Can y'all mute? Okay,
It went away.
Okay, so just because you disclose that you received your shot, it does not give the public access to your medical history. And so I do want to make sure that folks know that it does not open you, it does not subject you to having to open up your entire medical history and things of that nature. All you would really do with HR, at least when I worked at the FQC setting, is HR would be the compliance piece that you would let them know whether you took your vaccine. Even when we were doing flu shots, they couldn't make everybody take a flu shot. It was volunteer, and those who did not, they had to disclose that with HR that they did not get their annual flu shot, and HR was the one that followed up on that. So yes, so I'm very mindful of that. But again, just wanted, and it's not anything that we have to take action on today. I just want to start the conversation, and maybe a meeting can be called later on to discuss it. But I know that we have on our agenda, and I'll bring it up, that if we are going to relax or roll back some of the restrictions on bars and restaurants in the parish, then couldn't that be making a case for, the commission ain't even meeting in person, so why are y'all rolling back restrictions? So I just kind of want us to make sure that we're doing a balancing act. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chavez.
Thank you, Chairman. I wanted to ask, are we the only government entity locally that is not meeting, or is everybody else back in session? I don't know. Do you know?
I'm not 100% sure. I think both their bodies over there are meeting. The city council is just, I think they were not meeting. They were meeting, then they were not meeting, but I think they met last week in person. But I don't know. I guess that's something, Mr. Wilson, if you could check on that and let us know that information, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you, Doc. I guess I just, if not, I hear you guys talking about the vaccine, and then I hear Donna saying that we can't ask the employees if they're vaccinated. So vaccines aside, what is our bar? And this is our committee. This is what we're discussing. Is absent of that, what are we waiting for? And this may be a president call to call the commissioners and ask, at what point do they want to come back to the commission chambers to house the meeting? Because I've been asked this a lot. People say, "Hey, when do you guys meet again?" I say, "I don't know." And their question is always, "Well, when will you know?" And I don't know which each commissioner's reservation is. I have not called each commissioner to ask that. So, like I said, maybe the president may want to make the query, but I personally wonder that myself. Is what is the bar? Zoom has obviously become pretty normal. It's obviously very convenient. At first, I was very against it because I'm old school. I like to show up for work and get work done. But now, obviously, it's very convenient. But I get it. It's easier. It's easier from the president's standpoint to have the meeting in the chambers, and I can say that because being the vice president, having to hold some meetings in the chamber, and then being the president in the Zoom, it's extremely difficult. So I do feel bad for president and vice president having to do the Zoom, but from a board member, it is a lot easier to Zoom in and do it. But I wonder that myself is when are we going to get back in the chamber? So I don't expect you, Commissioner Hopkins, to give me that answer. That's just maybe something for the president to get a query and tell the group. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Burrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take another stab at this. I want to correct something that Commissioner Chavez said. I know what he meant. He's saying that I want to show up for work. If we make a Zoom meeting, that don't mean, that doesn't say that we're somewhere else not doing our job. If we showing up, if we even show up on Zoom, that means that we may not be in the chamber, but we're in place and we're doing our job. So I don't want it to be put to the public that just because we're not in the chamber, that we're not showing up for our job. If I wasn't showing up for my job, I wouldn't even be in the meeting. That's how I see not showing up for your job. This is just another mechanism by which we can still communicate with the public and be very open and transparent. There's nothing that they don't see us do in the meeting that they wouldn't see us do in the chamber unless we go off the video and stop the video. So I don't see that part. The other thing I wanted to say is, suppose we had a tuberculosis outbreak, and there is, from what I understand, there are medical treatments or vaccination for tuberculosis. Would you like to be in a place where you have people who come in that defies the fact that, well, first of all, they are anti-vaxxers. Secondly of all, it may be a political deal where they won't do it. They won't safeguard themselves, nor will they safeguard you. Would you be safe in a situation like this? This happened to be a particular virus that has been so politicized that many people think that just because they haven't gotten it or a family member hadn't gotten it, the over 500,000 who've gotten it, it doesn't mean anything to them politically because they're not affected or their family's not affected. But let them think about the fact that if this was tuberculosis, something that they are probably more familiar with, that you would have the same situation, like to still go into an environment with something as contagious as that, although you may have taken a vaccination or vaccine or whatever, in the same scenario. I'm just kind of throwing that out there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Well, I think this is a subject we need to look at and discuss. And I think we can come back in a few weeks and meet again. So we'll add that to our next agenda, and maybe we can come to some kind of resolution. At this time, we move to discuss to update our current bylaws. I think each one of you have the bylaws attached. I would ask that each one of you go through section 1 through 6 and see what changes you think may be needed. I'm doing the same thing. Matter of fact, I had already started that earlier on. But if you would go through 1 through 6, articles 1 through 6, and just mark down where you would like to see changes that can get past 2/3 vote, then bring those and we'll meet. I'll set the meeting. We'll do it first early in April, and we'll do the first 6, and we'll continue to discuss holding in-person meetings at that time. Is there any other business? If
Move
If
to
not-
adjourn.
second. We're adjourned.